Hi there, my name is Dan Murphy, and you are listening to the Don't Change Much podcast. We're super excited to welcome our guest today, a good friend of the show, Nick Taylor. Nick is a pro golfer who's played on the PGA Tour since 2015. He's also a husband and a father of two. He joins us on the heels of a historic win at the Canadian Open, the first Canadian in 69 years to win on home soil. Nick's success has him currently ranked inside the top 50 of the official World Golf Rankings. Nick shares his health insights with us today, including how he balances the highs and lows of competing against the best in the world. Here he is, Nick Taylor, 2023 Canadian Open champion. And Nick, I'll start with that. How have things changed for you, if at all, since winning the title?
Probably recognize a little bit more in random locations, but I don't think life at home has changed a whole lot. I'm still changing diapers and getting up with running around with my 3.5-year-old son. So life's been good. Obviously, golf has been great this season, and so yeah, that part of I guess my career has been going really, really well this year. And at home life, we had a pretty big change 3 months ago with our daughter being born, and we're just kind of adjusting to that. But everything's been great.
So it must have been a bit of a whirlwind after you won the event. Tell me what it was like on the range when you kind of got back there with some of your peers, and who might have come up to you and talked to you that might not have in the past, or just came up and said they watched the playoff in the moment on 18.
Yeah, I think that was talking with Dave Markle, my caddy. It was pretty overwhelming, to be honest. The next week was the U.S. Open down in L.A., and I couldn't tell you how many people stopped by. There was some of the European players there that were supporting Tommy in the playoff. Had come up. Shane Lowry would be first comes to mind, but Shane was just saying how that was one of the craziest atmospheres that he's been around. And just words like that coming from him, where he's won the British Open in his home country. He won the Irish Open as an amateur. He's done some special things. Just to say that atmosphere was that, electric, was pretty neat. The physio room was Rory, John Rahm, a lot of guys, guys that, I'm cordial with, but to say congratulations and kind of reach out that they've been watching was, that week was pretty special. And then even after that, guys I had seen, even John Deere, Scottish, a lot of guys have come up to us, so it's been pretty cool.
Just go back a little bit, because I think you reference this in your perhaps after round 4 in media availability, but you obviously didn't get off to the best start that week. Your wife, Andie, who was not in Toronto, correct?
Yeah, no, she was home.
She was home in Abbotsford. So you had a conversation with her, and it wasn't exactly I support you one, and she's telling you to get your acting gear?
Yeah, she had watched a bit of I think I was on a feature group Thursday morning, and I remember getting off to a decent start and just hitting a really uncharacteristic wedge shot, I think on maybe 16, and just kind of let that affect me, lingered it too long, had a tough kind of 3-4 hole stretch, and I think from her eyes I just looked like I was having a miserable time out there. And so a lot of it was just like, what, we're doing fine at home, I'm here with 2 kids, enjoy yourself, don't worry about us. I think even after, I think it was the PGA in Colonial, right after our daughter Harper was born, was, I was excited to get back to golf, but also, a lot of me wanted to be home helping Andie, being with our new daughter. So that was kind of tough, but just kind of hearing the words, hey, we're fine here, just do your thing and come back home when you're done, and also stop looking miserable was probably the best words I could hear, because I knew my game was a good spot. I just need to be in the right kind of mindset.
What was the atmosphere like on 18? When after the putt went in, like you obviously hear guys say, I blacked out briefly before I came to.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what it was like from the moment you struck the putt until perhaps after Adam got tackled by security?
Yeah, it was bedlam. It was, people were trying to rush the greens. Obviously the rain was coming down. There was players coming on the green, the media. The corner of my eye, I saw Adam get tackled, but then we were right back. I think Corey Connors came in. I gave him a big hug. So it was the whole 4 holes, honestly, was, when everybody had to run to the 9th green, it was amazing how fast they got there to kind of have the same electric atmosphere on the 9th green and coming back. So, it was something that I hope to be a part of again, but I don't know if I'll ever emulate that. It was pretty special.
So when all the madness is done and you go back to your hotel and you're looking at your phone and you're getting some messages, and how many times did you watch the putt on your phone or on TV? Did you get a chance to enjoy it all?
Yeah, when after the U.S. Open, we definitely came back, watched the coverage, was able to see that. I saw the putt, mostly the putt, and Adam getting tackled. I think a lot over the next few days. Um, a lot of it, I feel like my perception almost changed over time because I had my own, you know, like I guess memory of it. Dave charging at me, celebrating there, but then seeing it from different perspectives was definitely unique. And then I almost now only see that perspective because I've seen it so many times. But yeah, it was a whirlwind of a few days. I felt like being home for 2 weeks after the U.S. Open was nice to kind of recharge. We had a little kind of celebratory get together with some friends, and that was a lot of fun to kind of just to celebrate it because just you never know if that's ever going to happen again.
Okay, I think like it'd be fair to say that you said you're getting recognized more. That probably started earlier in the year. I know you'd won on tour twice, Sanderson Farms early in your career, and then just before the pandemic at Pebble. But elevated event in Phoenix earlier this year, just because of who was right there with you, Scheffler and John Rahm, 1 and 2 in the world. Is that kind of where this season really took shape?
I think so. I think there was a lot of work behind the scenes last off season, and I think last fall was a good stepping stone. I had a top 10 early on and some good results, and then I started the year off pretty nicely in Hawaii, had a nice result, and then that just kind of fed into Phoenix. And it's a course where I never really had much success there, but I've played there a bunch. I live right down the road. Put a little more time in this year playing it, leading up to it, trying to read the greens a little bit better. And it was a week where I felt like I played really, really well. It felt like I definitely played well enough to win. Scotty just played a little bit better. So I took a lot of confidence from that, playing with him and John Rahm in the final group, toe to toe with him to the very end. So I definitely took a lot of confidence from that. Obviously, being one of the first elevated events, the crowds there were insane as well. Weren't necessarily one sided pulling for me, but still, just being in that atmosphere, I think definitely helped me going forward for the season and definitely at the Canadian Open to kind of just know what I'm kind of getting myself into and be able to kind of focus and let it go.
Manage your stress, not the other way around. For simple ways to improve your mental health, check out the free MindFit Toolkit from the Canadian Men's Health Foundation. Complete a self-assessment, access virtual counseling, and learn more about how anxiety, stress, or depression might be impacting your health. Go to menshealthfoundation.ca and access the MindFit Toolkit to start improving your mental wellness today.
You've been on tour for a decade and a half, made solid living, but here you are, mid-30s. What changed in the off season, or what improvements did you make? And I'm not going to talk about putting or work off the course or work on the course, but what about off the course in terms of different mental preparation, perhaps mind coaches and things like that, or even just someone you talk to about just about your game?
Yeah, I'd seen Bob Rotella last summer. He's kind of a guru in the mental side of golf for a long time. I'd read a handful of his books and just wanted to take it a step further. And, after that, I was in the off season. I knew Chris Bertram's a good friend of mine, and he's definitely gone to the mental performance side of golf and other things as well, but sports as well. And so we kind of sat down and he's like, if we're going to do this, let's put together a plan. Let's do this full time. And I was all in. And so a lot of it has kind of been, that 1% type stuff, kind of daily routines shifted a little bit to kind of put everything focused towards kind of the end goal is be as best I can be. And, a lot of it would be from simple diet things to, routines and movements in the gym, just sticking to the process and doing that over and over again. And I feel like I've been really consistent with that, especially probably since January, but it all really started in September. And a lot of it was, one of the first things we did was a lot of mindfulness stuff and just being aware of kind of where my thoughts are going, aware of where I am on the golf course, off the golf course. And so it's kind of been baby steps, and he's probably taken it slow with me, but I felt like the process has really turned out definitely in the long run.
Why did you feel like you wanted to go this route?
I just felt like I wasn't getting enough out of my potential, I guess I could say. I felt like, yeah, I've been on tour for, at that time, was 8 years. I'd won a couple times, but I just felt like I just wasn't getting what I needed out of it. And, I've had a lot of people around me on my team currently, not on my team anymore, that have said how much faith they have in my potential, my game. And so I felt like, I've always had that belief, and people around me keep telling it that, I felt like it just needed a minor switch. And I felt like probably off the course stuff and between the ears is probably where I wanted to start.
Okay, so because I think a lot of times when guys have kids, it becomes more difficult to focus on the sport. It's happened a lot, right? I mean, your priorities change a little bit. So how have you managed to balance, the work life, father, husband? Has it been
Yeah,
difficult at times?
certainly. I think you definitely need to schedule out your time better, with everybody in mind. I want to spend time with my kids. I also want to, be as best as I can be on the golf course. I want to be around for my wife to help her, for us to spend time together. So it's definitely prioritizing your time, um, and really trying to condense things to be as efficient as possible. So I think I've gotten better over that, especially since our son was born, and now with two, it needs to be even more. On the road, it's a little bit different probably because it's definitely all about me on the road. So I definitely probably have to be a little more selfish than some would be, especially when I'm at home. I felt like probably my practice habits have changed the most. Just being at home, I'll carve out a few hours a day, probably going around nap times and such like that. But to get things, done in an efficient manner and feel like I'm prepared going to next week is important. So just being more timely is definitely part of the reason why that's going on.
Your son Charlie, but he was on the road with you and Andie, correct? Was that the last couple of years that you guys traveled as a family?
Yeah, they've probably done half the events. I would say on average, when COVID hit, he was 3 or 4 months old, so they didn't travel for a decent part during COVID. And that part was hard too. I don't think I really adjusted that very well. Just being on the road for weeks at a time, not seeing your family, it's easier to get things done potentially, when I'm at the course and doing my things, but you're not with the people that you want to be with. It just over time it takes a toll. So it's been nice to be able to travel. It can be difficult. We were just overseas. We got countless bags, setting things up, taking them down, taking trains, and everything. It's tough, but it's definitely stuff that we want to do.
So, walk us through that because you mentioned practice. A lot of people, feel that your game. You show up on a Monday, Tuesday, you play 9 holes, maybe 18 pro-am, and then you play. But to consistently try to improve and get better as a player, you need practice time as well. And I'm guessing practice time wasn't a problem when you were younger, especially when you didn't have a family. But just the planning and the organization that you need to do now in order to get those reps in that you need to perform at your best.
Yeah, I think what I've done really well, especially the last say year or so, is just narrowing down what things are are great for me to kind of get that 1% a day. And if that's certain drills for me, certain things to focus on and not focus on, I think that's where I've really probably meshed out my own personal plan. I think everyone's slightly different, especially in the golf world, but that's working with my coaches, caddy, the whole team, figuring out what's going to make me the most efficient in the least amount of time. I felt like growing up, probably you thought, if you're spending 12 hours at the golf course, you're going to get better. And that's partly true, but also if you're doing the wrong things, you can definitely go in the opposite direction too, especially in golf. They always say if you try too hard, you're probably not going to get the results that you want. So it's a very fine balance, but I think I've really narrowed it down and done well this year that, you just pick up the things that make me better, stick to them, stick to the process of doing those things. And there's no guarantee every time results will come, but I think enough results have come for me this year that I know that we've kind of found a game plan that works for me.
What about the power of saying no and needing to be selfish every once in a while?
Yeah, it's hard. That was definitely probably another level up since the Canadian Open. Saying no to casual rounds of golf, saying no to interviews, saying no to certain things. I feel like Andie, my wife, and I, our family live pretty simple lives, but it still is something you got to get used to. Is saying no to things that you potentially want to do, but it'll save some time here or there, or just prioritize what you want to do.
You mentioned your practice habits, how they've changed a bit, how you've condensed them and maximized the time. What about fitness? How does that fit into your daily lifestyle?
It's probably a little different on the road versus when I'm at home, not at tournaments. On the road, I have a pretty diligent routine. I'll have my PT out there. Craig Davies is out there, so I'll see him every morning to kind of get a stretch, get an alignment. Check everything. Kind of goes through. A lot of my issues typically are with, not issues, but stuff to check on will be hips, kind of back and neck. I mean, that's pretty constant with a lot of players. But and then I'll have a 20 to 25 minute kind of warm up routine in the gym. So usually I budget about 45 minutes for all of that, and that's a pretty standard daily routine. I'll try to fit a workout in there maybe on a Tuesday or after a morning round on that Thursday or Friday. But I say the most consistent thing would be the warm up. When I'm at home, I did a good job over the Christmas holidays. I kind of to try to put some weight on, actually do some workouts in the gym, and really just try to maintain that throughout the season. Like I said, it's been a little bit different since we've had our second here in the last 2 months. We're at home. It's really trying to figure out schedules and when I can buy 45 minutes here or there to work out in the gym. And that's where if things are a little tougher that day or lack of sleep, then that's probably gonna be pushed aside, and I'd rather just hit some balls or work on some short game stuff. So that's kind of figuring out what I'm going to do. But on the road, I've definitely still stick to my plan of getting the body moving before I kind of do anything in that day.
So even if you've got a 7:30 tee time, what's the wake up call? 4:30 or something to get coffee or a bite to eat before you go for the alignment and the warm up?
Yeah, I'm usually up around 3 hours. Just how I get to the course maybe 2:15, 2.5 before the round, and kind of see Craig, do my thing. Before that, I'll probably have a little bite of breakfast. But yeah, it's kind of got down to a bit of a process. So when there's a 7 a.m. tee time, it's definitely trying to be an early bedtime the night before, because the early mornings. But yeah, definitely got into a pretty routine getting to the course.
Sleep important to you for optimizing your performance? Have you found that at all?
Huge. That was one of the first things that Chris Bertram and I did. I don't wear the Whoop currently. I've worn it on and off since it's come out the last 3 years or so, but that was kind of an exercise that we did to build awareness of how I really felt with sleep, trying to get a consistent kind of bedtime, awake time. It's very important. I feel like if you have a lack of sleep, especially in our job, getting up super early, on a tee time, I was maybe a little more irritable, less patient. Sometimes you might have good rounds, but it probably, I feel like by the end of the round, you can lose a bit of patience, and that can definitely affect your swing, your score, your mental attitude. So I try to prioritize sleep as much as I can.
How does your support system, family, your team, how much do they contribute to your on-course success, do you think?
Oh, it's massive. I think, if I start with family, like Andie, the support that she's given me at home or at the course is second to none. I feel like, family is so important to me, but also, like I said, I kind of have to be selfish when we're on the road, kind of stick to my schedule, and it can be tough on her, but I know that they're there to support me, and I want them there. So it's not easy when they're out there necessarily, but being together is definitely important to us. All the coaches that I've had on my team, Dave Markle is my caddy, they're there to try to make the best out of what I can be. And, all of their influence, their help, the hours they've put in is massively important to all the success.
How do you limit the distractions? And I think I know something here. If you're in contention, I get the sense you kind of put your phone away on the weekend. You probably limit your contact to family. Is that something you do if you're having a good week to, you mentioned the selfishness, but then to just focus on yourself and your preparation for your job?
Yeah, I've done a pretty good job of that, of when I've gotten those spots. I think there's something I could probably learn from that, and just in general, probably staying off social media, at least limiting it during tournament weeks. But yeah, the probably the three biggest tournaments I've had probably in the last few years would be Pebble, Waste Management, and the Cane Open. And every single one of those, I kind of just put my phone on Do Not Disturb, didn't go on social media, just like left it alone. I'm sure someone could tell you a lot of reasons why that's good, but just avoiding seeing things that are unnecessary to get me maybe thinking about things I don't need to be thinking about. I felt like all three of those instances specifically, I was obviously in a pretty good headspace on the golf course, and I didn't need anything to kind of take me away from that off the golf course. So just kind of put it away, responded to a handful of people that I knew, but just put my phone away and try to just, I guess, be present and not just worry about what was going to go happen the next day, if that was the Saturday or the Sunday, because um, there's just a lot of thoughts can go through your mind, so you don't need to add any fuel to the fire.
So, the Saturday night before the Sunday of the Canadian Open, obviously you're by yourself. Do you think that helps when you're by yourself prepare, or would you like it when your family's there to take your mind off everything it could wander to in that moment? Or I guess 6 and 1, half dozen the other.
When my kids are there and my wife's there, it definitely can help for those certain reasons. I was thinking about this earlier. I think the great weeks when your families are there, it makes it that much sweeter. And then, when the weeks aren't as great, like you said, you can get your mind off the golf, be present with your family, and do that kind of thing. So it's always an upside when they're there. That particular week, obviously after that Thursday day, got a nice pep talk from Andie, and then I kind of got in the zone there, and I felt like just letting that ride. Maybe in that instance, just not having anybody around. Obviously, we had talked a bunch, but just kind of stayed in that groove. Whatever happened that week, it definitely worked. So more times than not, I definitely want my family out there to help and just get away from what's going on at the golf course, on the golf course. So, but yeah, it's better when they're there. But I think that week it just kind of things worked out where I was doing a good job off the golf course, keep my mind off of the things I didn't need to think about, and kept them focused on things that I needed to be thinking about.
We all have bad days at work. I mean, it doesn't matter what field you're in. Do you rely on certain things or habits when perhaps you've had a result that's been disappointing to you, or a final round, or even a hole or something that cost you a chance at something?
Yeah, I think this year especially, I've done a good job of that. I feel like golf, you can felt like you can't miss a shot one day, and literally the next day you feel like the complete opposite. And I think that's where the process, I don't know about goals, but just your process, daily routines can be so important that I've done a good job of sticking to that. One bad round, one bad tournament. I've had a long enough stretch here of good golf that I've stuck to what has got me to a better place than I was a year ago. And haven't let, one bad round or one bad tournament kind of stray away. If there's a consistent theme maybe for a few weeks, then I'll talk to my coaches and see where we can start to improve or maybe switch things up. But I think in the past, after one bad round, I've probably overreacted too much. And you can spiral pretty quickly doing that and try to change everything. So I've been good at just kind of sticking to my thing and not overthink it.
What about goal setting? Is that something you do prior to a season? Does that change as the season goes on? Are these things you write down or discuss with Chris, perhaps?
Yeah, I've different coaches throughout the years. I've had goals. I've written them down. I honestly don't. We definitely talked about our goals this year. I don't know if I necessarily wrote them down. I think a lot of the stuff, like I said, that I wanted to shift was kind of daily process type goals. I read a good book that's kind of stuck with me over last fall called Atomic Habits by James Clear, and I thought it resonated a lot with me. Just kind of narrowing my focus, be a little bit better on that daily, specifically type stuff. And so that's where I think a lot of my goals have been, stick to, if it's having athletic greens in the morning, if it's, having a cold shower, if it's have a little self-awareness, doing certain things, breathing techniques, sticking to my drills with golf. I feel like my daily routines at the golf course and warm-ups and practice have been very, very consistent on things that we know is working for me. So, that's probably been the biggest goals. Result goals are great. I've always, liked to have those as well. But I think I've started to realize that if I stick to my process goals and really diligent about doing them, then the results will kind of take care of themselves. And that's, I think, why this year I've probably been the best at at getting, I guess, the results that I want, because I've been not super focused on the results, just doing the things that I think will make me as good as I can be to produce those results.
You just mentioned, but is that why you're having your best career ever on tour, your best season ever on tour? So you think, does that have more to do with the physical approach or the mental approach to the game?
I think it's a bit of both. Like I said, I've added a few pieces. Chris Bertram was one of them, kind of on the mental side. I do work with Mark McCann and Gareth Paflewski, but locally, when I've been back in Abbotsford, I've gone and seen Ryan Hawley, who's just been a different approach from the coaching side than I've used in the past. And he's been a huge help too. So I feel like I've taken a few different angles and been diligent. But yeah, I think it's been a combination of both for sure.
Like, obviously you've got some things that work for you. You mentioned that when you practice. Do you like to keep some things fresh though too? If say someone's stuck in their training and motivation, isn't quite where it needs to be, wanting to go to the gym or wanting to practice is not. Do you like to keep some things fresh so the motivation stays high?
Totally. I've probably been repetitive saying like sticking to the process, but I think this year it's been easy to stick to that because I've had the results showing for it. If there's whatever you're doing in your career, if things aren't showing, then I think absolutely need to kind of spice things up. I remember seeing a quote that, motivation is an emotion and it's not reliable, which I thought was very interesting. So if you have those, like I don't just keep repeating it, but if you have these process goals, or processes that you do in the morning, regardless of how you feel, once you kind of get in those good routines, it kind of takes care of itself. So that kind of stuck with me, where I felt like I've always been a relatively motivated person, but there's certain times where I wake up in the morning and I have no interest to do X, Y, and Z that I plan to do that day. But if you kind of have those daily habits and they get ingrained, it seems to be, at least for me, my experience this year, easier to stick to them. You feel like I did the day before when I felt like doing it. If I don't feel like doing it today and I push through, I know it'll feel better by the end of the day. So that's kind of what I've been trying to stick to.
You've got your home partnership in Andie and your course partnership. Why the change of caddies before this season?
It was the end of the season last year, and ironically, my last caddy, Dave, he just wanted a change of hearts. So yeah, it was the week before the playoffs had started. Dave Markle was on the Corn Ferry Tour. I was kind of in a pinch. I didn't really have anybody in mind other than him. He popped to mind quickly. So yeah, I had a couple days to figure it out. I called Dave and said, "Hey, buddy, he's obviously been a good friend for 15 plus years, but I said, hey, this is kind of what happened. No pressure. No pressure in a sense. I'll give you a few hours, but if you can't do it, let me know. I need to find somebody because I have a tournament in a couple of days." So he called back within an hour or two and said, "I'm all in." It was great timing for all of us, but he had just gotten married with his wife Erin. So it's been a really cool year for both of us, but I think for us doing this all together has been a lot of fun.
People joke that the 3 rules for caddies are show up, keep up, and shut up. But obviously the relationship has to be more than that. How has his partnership helped with you on course? And what do you like from your caddy in good times and bad on the course?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think everyone's a little bit different. I think over the years, I almost tried to avoid having a good friend as a caddy because I didn't want to kind of have it cross a line. Potentially, in the golf world, doesn't matter. Things can get stale at times, and you want to switch it up. And I didn't really want that awkwardness with a friend, but this just kind of happened, and I was so excited about it because Dave is such a positive person, great person to be around. His golf IQ is extremely high. He was a great player. That's really how we met. Was through golf tournaments, and then eventually went to the World Amateur together in Australia. So I've high trust in his ability to read lies or read greens and pick clubs. We've been together a lot, I think, kind of in my amateur years where, when I reached number 1 in the world. So he's seen a lot of my great golf. And so I felt like his past stories or his, compliments just carried more weight for whatever reason. Previous caddies probably said the same thing, but maybe I just took his whatever words they were with more meaning. But yeah, on the golf course, I felt like the stuff I've been working on with Chris, he's great at that too, reiterating it and not letting me go down just a mental spiral that I think a lot of players have always done, but he's helped me kind of just stay on the tracks. And I think that's why this year my good rounds have continued to be good. And I've probably had some of those poor rounds in the past that have kind of steadied the ship, and he's been there to kind of keep me between the rails. So there's a lot of things that he does, but he's huge in a lot of reasons.
So is he able to read you as well as he can read the greens and the course? He has a good feel for what to say at the right time?
Yeah, he definitely does. And there's, I feel like we were a pretty open relationship in a sense for after good tournaments and or bad. He has no problem saying, hey, I think at this point my words probably didn't mean much to you. So, I think you could be better here or there. Or he's like, hey, where do you think I could be better in this situation? So, we've obviously had a lot of good stuff, but there's been rounds where, we've had a chat and be like, and I need to be more self-aware of kind of what I'm saying either to myself or, simple things like body language, how I'm walking, pace of walk, all that kind of stuff that, it seems small, but, when you're in a more positive frame of mind, better things can possibly happen.
We asked our guests this, everyone that comes on the podcast, and I think you've kind of answered it throughout with the 1%, but the podcast is called Don't Change Much. We're really getting guys to just make simple changes to get big results. So what does Don't Change Much mean to you, Nick?
Yeah, I think it's not reinventing the wheel to me. If I've related to myself, I think it's been sticking to good daily habits of if it's diet, exercise, small things. One of the things that James Clear I talked about earlier was, the hardest thing to do, say if you go to the gym, is putting your shoes on to go to the gym. It's not actually getting to the gym. So like I said, putting stuff in your environment to help you do things that you want to do, if that's a daily routine that you think will make your lifestyle better, diet better, try to do just the little things to push you down that line. So like I said, a lot of it's been 1% of stuff this year and just trying to stick into that. So it hasn't been huge changes, but in the end, it's been pretty monumental for my career so far.
Well, congrats on the win in Canada.
Thank you.
On the season so far. And we know that you have to say no to a lot of things these days, but we're really happy you said yes to this.
Me too. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed the conversation, click on the follow button and join us every month for a new episode of the Don't Change Much podcast.